Welcome back to the next video we'll be covering with Naruto scaling in depth, and we're going to be jumping right into it. So we last finished with Madara's meteors and his impressive Susanoo sword swing. That while it didn't show impressive AP in the direct actual calc, due to the enormous size of the sword to have done the damage it does scale above the 8 out of 9 tails Naruto, and therefore is at least extremely relative to Pain's full Chibaku Tensei at this many joules per centimeters cubed, or small town level AP per swing, which is very impressive for this series, especially since it can be spammed out so much, right? But I have to be honest, alright, so at this point I feel fully accomplished in setting a consistency for Naruto. I'm talking about for the feats, the stats, and otherwise, like say the level of power or the level of durability in the series. I really hit the durability one. I can't let this series drag on longer than it needs to. So, because I've provided so much prior consistency, I'll now be focusing on covering all the new feats coming up only if they serve to actually change the scaling or would change the scaling if it was actually true. So there's some false things that a lot of people take like it changes the scaling that doesn't actually, so I'll address those too. Alright, so no need to bring up, say, like a single Bijuu bomb that falls in line like all the other feats or something. No need to bring up the speed of X person who falls in line with the already known scaling. I will talk about something like Mabui's technique of sending people and objects at light speed, because that's again an example of some that would change the scaling if some of the popular opinions were actually true about the feats. Alright, so with that said, starting out, we have Mabui's technique, alright? Is this light speed? Feat shows travel and not just teleportation. You can see it here, left side. Also shows a direct flash of light. Nice. Opinion that I've seen, Madara and I guess even half power Mu at this point have light speed reactions because they block Tsunade and A's attacks. Alright, I won't be long with this. Up front, this doesn't show anything close to light speed, anything other than specifically the travel speed of Mabui's technique. We see here that the flash of light has already happened. It's already behind them, even. You know, the light's gone. It's already done its traveling. If they were being attacked at the speed of light, they already got blitzed. So are they being attacked during this light? No. Are we seeing any movement matching the speed of light of the light flash? No. Again, it's already behind them. Yet in the next panel, they blocked the 2 attacks. Yes, because they reacted to the very much not light speed attacks and blocked. That is all. Additionally, insofar as people who will claim Naruto is even close to light speed at this point, and I'm talking about Naruto the series, that any of them is scaling to light speed even at close whatsoever, I guess from their different statements that are never backed by feats. That's the only thing you got. This feat here shows the opposite, exact opposite. Tsunade and A weren't close to Madara and the Kage at all. They got between them during Madara, of all people, Madara and Mu's movement speed towards the Kage from a vastly shorter distance. Madara's rushing them. Tsunade and A, way different spot. Speed is literally distance divided by time. Tsunade and A, using Mabui's technique, covered a far thousands of times distance, higher distance, in a lesser time. They got in between them. What's the speed difference here? Madara ain't light speed. Nothing in the series is shown even close to light speed. Madara could be 1,000 times faster and he wouldn't be light speed because their distance even was far more than 1,000 even. 1,000 might just be still a football yard away, football field away. They were so close when they were rushing them. Okay, you could make Madara 1,000 times faster. He's not even close to light speed. Okay, it's not hard. All right, that's straight panel by panel for you. The only thing that is light speed by triple AP scaling is the Mabui's technique itself. All right, next we have 8 tails spinning and causing this insane feat. Doesn't change the scaling, but it does help with finding future scaling. So, I'll be bringing this up because of the scaling it has for future scaling, alright? The only thing I need to talk about this here is that by using the size for Hachibi during his fight with Sasuke as reference, we can find that his crater's diameter should be around this many meters long. Again, this feat in of itself doesn't show any worth other than setting up for a future feat. That future feat being The power of General Bijuu bombs from the Edo Bijus running around with shotguns and renegons in their eyes. We can clearly see the area where B did his prior feat, and in this panel, we're able to see the size of that same crater compared to the mountains. It's here we can then understand why I called those mountains in Naruto so small. Not just from Madara's Susanoo's perspective, but now too from this crater, where oddly many mountains are close in length to the crater, but they're like 5 times shorter than their own lengths, or the crater making them, so their height is like this many meters tall, like sub 400 meters tall. But hey, I mean, that's right in the ballpark of what I was finding before, oddly enough. Anyways, so again, extremely short mountains. Regardless, this feat also doesn't change the scaling landscape, but it could have if the landscape of the mountains were something of actual good size. If those mountains were actually like full-on mountain-sized, each and every one of them, then we could have a changing of the scaling landscape going on here. And that's something that a lot of people think it is. Those mountains, sadly, are, just by every metric, multiple panels, every single time, suggest to be quite small, almost hill-level sized things, okay? They are mountains, just extremely small mountains. Alright, so that's why I'm bringing this up. But wait, hey, there's one more reason I bring this up. It also gives us an approximation to the size of the Bijuu bomb explosions for this feat. And if looking at this panel, you'll see multiple smoke clouds rising from craters that were left in the ground from those same Bijuu bombs. We'll be taking the one closest to us, as it's the only one not hidden behind something else, where we can clearly see the beginning and end of the actual crater. Otherwise, we're just guessing the crater size based on the clearly changing sizes of the smoke coming out. Like even the one that's closest to us, the top end of the smoke cloud is larger than the bottom end. The top end of the smoke cloud is bigger than the whole. So no, it's changing. We know that smoke changes. Even when it's at the beginning of, say, like a crater where the bomb, first goes off or something, the smoke cloud can be bigger than the actual crater. So this is the only clear shot. This is the one we're using. It'd be silly to do otherwise. So, now that we're looking at Naruto having gained full access to the Nine Tails chakra with no drawback, being capable of making his own Bijuu bomb strong enough to do this when combined with the fused Bijuu bomb of the other 6 Bijuu, that's the full feat, his plus theirs. Let's find some numbers. We have something to calc. So again, in taking the closest crater left behind and comparing it, we find the super clash of the Bijuu bombs here to have a diameter of this many meters, with an amazing volume of this many meters cubed, or an astounding this many cubic centimeters. I mean, this is absolute madness. And it only gets better. We need to find the joules of energy, right? Well, if you remember, I've said in the past that when an attack shows, let's say, vaporization of rock, but only a tenth of that attack fully capable of vaporizing rock hits, let's say, a wall of rock. So we have an attack that's vaporizing rock on touch, right? And it's hitting 10%, because it basically misses, almost just straight misses. Hits only 10% of that wall of rock. Here's what I'm saying. We shouldn't calc the total output as though the destruction of that 10% that it vaporized was like the full attack. Because that technically, that is all we're able to calc is the destruction shown, right? But no. I'm saying if we're getting confirmation that it is easily doing it, it's not struggling, it's just vaporizing on contact like this, then I'm going to calc as though the entire wall in this case was hit. I'm going to say that the entire AoE of rock vaporizing energy, the whole AoE has that same rock vaporizing AoE, the actual energy, right? So I'm going to say the whole volume has enough energy to be vaporizing rock. That's how I take it. That's how I've been taking it. And that's my reasoning for taking it, because otherwise the calcs miss out on the damage that it clearly actually has the capacity to do. To be clear, that's what I'm doing, and the gray area to that could be if again, it showed to really struggle to cause that vaporization or something. But in the case of the Bijuu bombs, again, they are heavily consistent at this time for vaporization of rock, and even though this explosion only causes a crater, that while big wouldn't be game-changing, what is game-changing is then considering, what if that explosion was fully encased in solid rock, right? So again, pretend like this explosion just had solid rock all around it. Or it started in the middle of a Chibaku Tensei, and it just went went all out. Just it became what it is. The Bijuu bomb exploded from its point inside of like a Chibaku Tensei or something. I'd imagine we'd be calcing the vaporization of rock to the volume of the entire explosion at least. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I know I'm repeating myself here. I'm trying to make it very clear why I am taking the full volume for this feat and applying the vaporization of rock level to the entire volume. I don't want anybody saying it's wank or anything. This is my justification and why. Alright, so considering vaporization of rock is an astounding 25,700 joules for every cubic centimeter, we're looking at a whopping never before seen this many total joules, or a low-end country level amount of joules. We've just hit country level. Insane. Now this changes the scaling landscape for total joules. And now we need to find the AP. For that we'll need two things. First, volume of Naruto's Biju bomb. And second, just an understanding that Naruto's Biju bomb was only half the total yield. Alright, so what does this give us then? Well, sadly by calculation, we do only find an AP yield of this many joules per cubic centimeters, Or we're talking low-end building level joules per centimeters cubed, or cubic centimeters, right? Alright, everyone should know why this is the case for the calc with no scaling, alright? Yeah, even taking just the volume of the bomb pre-explosion, we're looking at an absolute massive volume making up this attack's volume. The Bijuu are already extremely large, right? Just how large is this attack then? It's this many cubic centimeters large, man. I mean, it's too large, all right? Okay? But that said, this again has always been why I've said that Naruto requires massive AoE to get their impressive feats. Without those massive AoEs, you're not getting those impressive feats. It's always such a massive AoE required. But what we do know is that this feat will be outscaled by other future feats. Other future feats that will be much smaller than the Bijuu bombs shown here. That means there will be a chance that their AP will actually be around the total joules of this entire attack, the AP of that future feat. We'd be looking at country levels AP and not just total joules. But that'll depend on those future feats, such as, actually 8 Gates guy, remember him? We'll be looking at some future feats, and this scaling for country level total joules is going to matter so much. So it won't be long, just wait. Eventually though, as we look for feats capable of changing the scaling landscape, we come to the Ten Tails Bijuu bomb. It's the same amazing feat we've always seen and nothing has changed. The total joules are going to be massive. The AP in a calc will only require the 25,700 joules per centimeter cubed for vaping of rock, the baseline. That would be the only baseline required for it to do the feat that it did. But additionally, it scales to an unknown degree over other things. We just don't know how much more it scales over other things. That said, things have changed, mostly on my end. Now with taking the AP to the point in calcing the volume of the attack before the explosion, we can get an idea of the AP without scaling. But first, the total joules. We'll need that first, right? So we see the attack, we see the Eight Tails crater, the area around it, and the many mountains all around that as well. So how large is this? Well, the way I see it, there are two ways to tackle this. The first is to once again acknowledge just how small those mountains are next to the crater and surrounding area. In this panel, the mountains are in fact far smaller than we saw in even the other panel in length and around the same in height. So very small mountains, okay? But the area being affected by this explosion is such an insanely far away area. We're talking about an entirely different space. The mountains could be an entirely different height. It could be entirely different mountain. They are entirely different mountain ranges, and these ones way back there could be entirely different sizes from the ones that we're seeing right next to ourselves. We're talking like probably entirely different ecosystems even. So, given there's absolutely no way to tell the actual size of the mountains next to the blast, here's the question. Should we be taking the size of the mountains portrayed in this panel here and say that the sizes are in line with the sizes of the mountains that are actually near the blast? Or do we use the size of the mountains we saw from the previous feat? Both would be just as valid, but to cut to the chase, we'll be using the larger mountain sizes. Now this is not because we want to avoid lowballing, but because of purely mathematical reasons. The mountains shown in this panel are so extremely small. If used as a base, the feat suggests merely this many total joules or high and large island level total joules. If again, we're using the smallest showcasing of mountains. That number there is less than the Naruto and Bijuu clash of before. Yet we know this Bijuu bomb here scales above it in literally all categories. But what about taking the mountains as represented before? You know, the larger sizes that we saw that showed the mountains more in line, at least in length, with the entire Eight Tails crater. If we do that, then the volume of the blast would be considerably larger, obviously, and would lead to a vastly higher this many total joules or lower mid-end country level total joules. Now that's more like it. That's over a 50% increase in total joules over the clashing of the Bijuu bomb's feat. Naruto's full feat, everything charged into his blast, mixing with the 6 other Bijuus, also who have been powered up with Sharingans and Renegans, no less, right? And yeah, I understand. Don't think I've missed this. You might think like, whoa, but it's so much larger than the sphere. It can't be less than 2 times the output, because I'm saying 50%, right? Like 1.5 times the output. I understand, okay? But just look at the background for both. Both are using that same background. We have the crater and the mountains. What you really would be saying is that the Ten Tails blast is so much taller than the sphere. And it is, but that blast is also a cone, not a sphere. Different shapes. Different methods in finding volume. The sphere shape is massively above the mountains in height as well. So yes, taking into account the different shapes and both utilizing the same background for starting points, the Ten Tails Bijuu bomb by itself, no less, put out this many times more energy than the Naruto plus 6 other different Edo Bijuu mode fused Bijuu bomb blasts. You know, that actual clash of like 7 different people. Okay, by itself, it was still, that's what equals into this many times more energy than that. Okay, so it is an amazing feat. So with that said, okay, all that's left is the AP then. Let's get into it. The Ten Tails Cone Bijuu Bomb Super Feat. The AP of this thing is going to be this many joules per cubic centimeter, or we're talking town level AP. Or this many times more potent than Naruto's Bijuu Bomb alone. Like, so this is just the Ten Tails attack alone versus just Naruto's Bijuu Bomb, like supercharged Bijuu Bomb alone, so without any clash. And we don't know how far above other things this scales, other than the fact it does scale above every other attack in the series. That said, we already know Perfect Susanoo is already at minimums in AP to say like the 8 out of 9 tails overpowering Chibaku Tensei itself, right? This Ten Tails feat in AP looks to be outscaling that by at least 10 times. Yes, 10 times is a number of convenience, 10, right? Very easy to work with. I'm not sure where it actually scales above. It's impossible for anyone to actually know where it scales above. So, 10 times is convenient to use, but it's also a number that I can claim for a minimum in full confidence by way of many other things that I've seen, other techniques, like say Rasengan and such compared to physicals. Now, Rasengan compared to physicals and such is a little different for Bijuus with their physicals, 2 different techniques, generally Bijuu bombs. But still, even then, a 10 times increase is backed by most feats surrounding it, and The big one, certainly so for this specific feat here, even if not so for the other ones. So given that, we'd expect this to then scale to at least this many joules per centimeters cubed, if we're talking 10 times, the other feats and their scaling. Or that's going to be, hold on, actually, wait a second. My math is just too good. I think my scaling is just too good. I am just so consistent because look at this number right here. Okay, this number right here is nearly what number I have just calcing out the feet. Here's the joules per centimeter cubed for scaling it 10 times higher than the last best feats that we had to scale to what was still the best feat for AP specifically. So I was just doing these numbers based on a scaling idea, taking low ends, making sure that everything was triple AP accurate, right? And after all this time, because trust me, I'm doing my calcs in order. I am not like coming back to this as like, surprise, I knew this all along. I'm honestly just as surprised. So this is, again, this is a number off of my consistent scaling, okay? And now, after all this time, I finally calc the feat, and this is the joules per centimeter cubed for the calking. Notice how close they are. I mean, that is pretty insane, actually. How close my scaling of the series has gotten into the calking now for the next best feat. If I was to scale it, right? Because make no mistake here. I mean, I'm honestly patting myself on the back here. There's no way I knew that the calc was going to calc like this. I had calced this feat in the past, but it was on a principle of it's an unknown AP. That's what I used to say. It's an unknown AP. Here's the total joules, around what I would have said before. But here, it's an unknown AP because it's just a giant AoE. But now I'm factoring in the volume of the attack as the little cone we see next to his face. Okay? I would have never known. And just in my knowledge of how a series ought scale, how close of a number it became to the actual calc. Crazy. Anyways, so beyond that, you might think, why not just apply that 10 times multiplier to Naruto's Bijuu bomb then? And not take like the Rasengan to physicals approach. And then I know it's kind of different for the physicals of Bijuu's. Like, why can you apply that 10 times multiplier to the Naruto's Bijuu bomb then? No. Of course I don't do that, and that's because I want to be consistent. We have examples of a Bijuu bomb being 10 times physicals, which we can link to Perfect Susanoo or 8 out of 9 Tails Naruto. We don't have examples of a Bijuu bomb being 10 times another Bijuu bomb's AP specifically. I'm talking about the AP, not just the DC. Even Naruto's Bijuu bomb only matched 6 Bijuu bombs, not 10, right? Like a 10 times multiplier. His Bijuu bomb only matched 6 Bijuu bombs, thus making only half the feat he had. Half. The only 10 times you could possibly argue in good faith for Bijuu bomb to Bijuu bomb is the 10 Tails Bijuu bomb here, his greatest feat, because look, he even has other ones he fires out and none of them are even close to the big feat. So you could even potentially argue an outlier, but I know it's not based on future things, memory-wise. But anyways, best you could argue is that this Bijuu bomb by 10 Tails is 10 times higher than the individual Bijuu bombs by, say, Naruto B or the other Bijuu, and I mean the basic ones, like the ones that they rapid fire out, not the I'm charging my, like really charging it up, not the super one that Naruto actually made. That's like a 10 times you could say. I'm talking about like the basic Bijuu bombs, the ones that are only vaping, like a little more than a single extremely small Naruto mountain. Alright, not even a basic mountain. So due to this, I will be holding off on this feat's scaling and hold with its calc this many joules per centimeter cubed or its town level AP for now. That's the calc. This is like the Chibaku Tensei, now the new highest feat, and its calc suggests that it is the highest tier in Naruto via a calc, and so other things will be able to scale off of it. So as soon as I can link it to another feat where the scaling becomes prevalent, then I will do so. Sadly for 8 Gates Guy, like I could say with Naruto's supercharged actual Bijuu bomb, I'm not so sure, at least not off of memory, that I can claim that Guy's 8 Gates, like actual physicals, or especially, the air pressure, maybe his physicals do outscale. I don't know, but I'll have to see. But off of memory, I just can't remember 8 Gates Guy outscaling, at least in an AP sense, the 10 Tails Bijuu bomb here. But we'll see as I keep going. Like I said, I'm doing my scaling in order. With that said, hey, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys are learning a lot of new things when it comes to this series. No other channel is going to get you this stuff or this much like built-in accuracy. You're getting some of the most rawest facts when it comes to the scaling of this series, because we're about done. This is about the end. I plan to finish this series with my next video, unless I'm just forgetting some very specific things that's going to make it stretch out into 2 videos, right? So I hope you really are enjoying this channel. This series is just about done. I can't wait to do some of the other videos, or do some videos of the other series that everybody's wanting me to do. But it's really nice to be doing some actual impressive feats in Naruto finally, after all this time. So I'll see y'all in the next video. Ciao.